membership chair here for the for the CPC, Cascade Pacific Council. And really appreciate everybody coming tonight, both here in person as well as online. We'll go ahead and do a quick round of introductions. We'll start here in the room, and then Virginia will be able to call on folks who are online. Just maybe your name and what unit you're with and what part of town you're from as well. Again, Rick Thomas, chair for membership here in the council. I live out in the Beaver Creek area, was active in Troop 140 and PAC 470.
Zach Danner. I am on the council membership committee, and I'm from the Tigard area, Pacific Trail.
Okay, I'm Dolly Olson. I'm from the Salem area. I'm on the council membership team, and I'm the territory membership lead.
Steve Kirtland, I'm from Vancouver, Troop 554.
Steve.
Jeffrey Fish, also from Troop 554, committee chair.
Nathan Triplett, I'm on PAC 254's committee chair. We're here in Hillsdale, Multnomah Village.
My name is Virginia Molina. I am the service area director for the southwest part of the council.
And I'm Kayleen Deathridge. Sit on the council board and also on our national executive board, and have hung out around the membership space for quite a while now.
Yeah, we're excited to have Kayleen doing our presentation tonight. She's done a lot on this at University of Scouting and elsewhere over the years. And I think with that, why don't we just jump to the online folks and just do quick introductions with them?
Yeah, if you want to drop in your name and where you're from, we are recording this, so we will send an email of the presentation out after the meeting. So we've got Pete Caffrey from Pacific Shores. We've got Kyle Rector from PAC 195 in South Hillsborough. We've got Jessica Milliken from PAC 259. Jen Brewer, Cub Scout PAC 7050 in Staten. Deb Hiltebrand, DE for River's Edge. Tim Williams, the Northeast Service Area Director. Whoa, they're coming in hot. David Grimes from Pacific Trail, membership chair. Kelly Mills, Troop 685 in Pacific Trail. Eric Kimes, PAC and 209 and Troop 220. Susan Presnell, Salem, Oregon, Troop 7019 and 9019. Trevor Sanchez, the Cascadia District Executive. Derek Sturgill, Cubmaster from PAC 169. Heather Sturgill, Committee Chair, PAC 169 and Pacific Trail Marketing Chair. Okay. We've got Allison Hirsch, Membership Chair for River's Edge. I heard that's a new one, so welcome to the team, Allison. We're glad to have you. Scott West from Santiam River District, District Chair, and with Troop and PAC 50. I think I got everybody. Thank you so much for being here, and we hope you get a lot of out of tonight's training. Go ahead.
All right, let's take it away. So the presentation that I want to give tonight is absolutely meant to be interactive. So if you're online and you have questions, put them in the chat. I'm sitting right by Virginia, so she can let me know if a question comes up. Here in the room, the same thing. My goal is to have a conversation, to share some strategies that we've been using in the movement, but maybe not as much as we could be, in hopes that they're useful to you as you think about how to grow your PACs, your troops, and your districts. So this presentation, and I meant to bring the book with me and I left it sitting on the kitchen table, right, is adapted from a book called I Heart Recruitment. And that is actually a book that is used for college recruitment. It actually came out of the sorority system. And so if what you hear tonight appeals to you and you want to go deeper, I encourage you to pick up the book. It takes most of these concepts and applies them in a university setting, but you'll find when you read through, it's pretty transferable to the work that we're doing in scouting. So that's where a lot of this comes from. So let's jump right on in. There we go. So no surprise, right? Last time scouting was growing, I was a newborn. So it's been a long time since we have seen the kind of numbers that we saw at our peak. And you all know there's all kinds of factors for that. What's most interesting today is what are we going to do about it, right? How do we get on the other side of that? And how do we approach our recruitment efforts differently? You know, we have kids join, but they don't stay. And you guys know that too, right? It's not just recruitment, but it's also retention. And in days past, when I talk to, you know, guys my dad's age, they talk about a time when it wasn't if you were going to join scouting, it was only when, right? So we didn't have to recruit very hard. In the 50s, 60s, 70s, it was just sort of what kids did. Those days are gone by several decades. And I think we have been slow as a movement to adapt. And now we are dealing with the results of that, where we have perhaps a less sophisticated or robust recruitment effort than we need. Also, and we all know this is true as well, right? I'm pointing to my uniform for those of you on Zoom. If you don't know what this is or what it means, we're strange. We're a bit weird, right? What is the scouting thing? It's like a club for somebody else, but it may not be a club for me. So, okay, next slide. And this next one is where I'm like, darn it, I keep meaning to update this slide and I haven't done it. So that tells you how long I've been giving this presentation because this data is old. But the reality is we are having a repeating issue where we're simply seeing very few councils maintain growth. So they might achieve growth, and this really hasn't changed dramatically, even though this data is a couple years old. We'll have a council that sees growth in a year, and then the next year, that number will drop. So it means they had an anomaly rather than a strategy that was sustainable. Otherwise, we would anticipate, right, that growth would continue if they had tapped into something that had long-term connectivity out in their community. So by and large, what we're seeing is a lot of sporadic growth or a particular opportunity, but not sustained growth. And we can't get out of our decline if we're celebrating, 1% growth. We're going to have to figure out how to get a little bit better than that. Let's go ahead. So in the Cub Scout realm, this just gets into a little bit of more detail about the time period in which this data was collected. In essence, the same bottom line is really the point we're trying to make here, that there does not seem to be, in most cases, a relationship between growth in 1 year and growth in a subsequent year. So we need again to continue to figure out, both in Cub Scouting and in troops, how do we sustain growth? How do we tap into something not only where we get our units to grow, but we also figure out how to retain those kids as we continue to bring in new ones. So let's dive right in. Next one.
I'm glad to see there are about 10 troops signed up for this training tonight with us. So
Oh,
it's good to
good.
see.
Well, I'm really glad that you're all here, and I want to paint a picture for you. So whether you're in Cub Scouts right now or not, I suspect that you can probably relate to this. So you show up to the pack meeting, right? The new family comes in, they're checking out the pack, and it seems that too often one of two things happen. Either I walk in the room and everybody's wearing these uniforms or Cub uniforms, right? And I don't necessarily understand the language, the acronyms, the activities. But because I'm new, it's like walking into a new church. Everybody comes, right? And you get all of this attention. People see a new parent. They're excited about the potential of getting that person involved. The point is we overwhelm them at times, right? We either ask them, we're ready to give them a registration form, sign them up, to lead the next pack meeting, and we've met them 15 minutes ago. That can be an unwelcoming first introduction into scouting because it's too much too soon, right? Then there's the other extreme. Somebody comes in, and I've heard of this one happening more lately than the former, which is I attend the meeting, I kind of sit quietly in the back of the room. I don't know the lingo. I don't know the people. Nobody really talks to me. I don't feel particularly welcomed. Nobody comes over and asks me who I am and where I'm from and who my child is and what we're interested in and answer my questions. And I leave feeling like that was not a very pleasant experience, and I probably don't want to have it again. And you've missed the opportunity to potentially engage me and my kids in how we might become a part of that unit. So the reality here is that we want to avoid those two extremes. We can't expect people to make a lifetime commitment to scouting 15 minutes in, and we can't fail to notice when we have new people coming into our packs and our troops and expect them to continue coming back if we don't invest a little bit of time in pacing the building of a relationship. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about static recruitment. That is historically how we recruit in scouting. Recruitment is either time-based or it's event-based. What do I mean by that? Oh, it's spring recruiting season. It's fall recruiting season. It's back to school night. And so we put on our recruitment hats when those particular times of the year or those particular events take place. And as soon as that season or that night or weekend day is over, I tuck my recruiting hat back into my car. I pat myself on the back because I'm all done and I move on. So I call that eventitis or dependitis, right? We are not focused on recruiting all the time. So next slide. So here's the reality. If we really want to get this done in a consistent way, it is not any different than your packs or troops, right? What if your pack didn't meet for 8 weeks? What if your troop didn't meet for the same? Would you lose momentum? Of course you would. Would things begin to fall off the radar or people feel disconnected from the unit? You bet. So in the same way that we have to invest in the activities and the health of our troop all the time, we really have to invest in recruitment all the time. It's got to be continuous and it's got to be intentional. So that no matter where you go, no matter where you are, you're always thinking about how are we recruiting. So what we're really going to do with the rest of this deck is talk about how do you just embed this into how your troop operates. So it doesn't take the recruitment chair or somebody to layer on to the busyness of your troop another task you have to do. Instead, you incorporate some of these tactics into the very culture of your unit. And that gets a lot easier than somebody on their own needing to be responsible for recruitment and trying to push that rock up the hill again and again and again. So what does it mean when I say friends recruiting friends? And so what I want to talk about is something called normal friend activities. So I'm just going to ask people in the room, but feel free to pop it in chat. If you meet somebody, for the first time and they appeal to you and you're interested in getting to know that person better, what might you do? Not a trick question. There you go, have coffee, right? Ask them, ask them coffee. Ask them where they're, try to figure out where you might be in the next place you might be in the same space at the same time, right? Invite them out to lunch. Maybe you met them at church, so you hang out at church and you chat with them afterwards, right? We know how to get to know people. We all do it all the time. Humans are very communal. But somehow we put our scouting shirts on and we forget all the ways that we actually know exactly how to get to know people. So what if rather than asking me to find the scout office or your church and come into the meeting, we began looking for activities where we could get to know people that might become parts of our troops and packs. And we find those people in the same place we find all the rest of our friends, right? So your unit could do a bowling night. You could do a barbecue in the park. In a warmer climate, somebody's got a pool in their backyard and they're going to host a pool party. And the idea is when we are inviting people to come out and experience our units, maybe we do that by having an activity that they understand as normal, the kinds of activities that we have all the time. That's the get to know you space. And we'll talk more about how to take advantage of that type of an approach. But it is a different way to meet people as opposed to expecting them to come to a troop or pack meeting when they're still learning about what scouting is. So keep that in mind, write that one down, normal friend activities.
Somebody in the chat says monthly exposure events so the kids are seen. Friends hang at the playground.
Bingo, that's exactly right. Something that is easy for people to say yes to, that gives you the chance to start working, scouting into the effort to just get to know somebody as a person. Okay, so you're only as strong as your weakest link, right? You've all heard that. And the reason why is because it's true. If we have people, but those people don't have any reason to be together, we don't get very far. If we have a tremendous cause, but we can't get anybody to buy into it, we also don't really get very much accomplished. So it's really important for you to think about what are the basic ingredients of your unit. It's both the people that make up that unit, but it's also what's the function of your unit. You know, I ask people sometimes, what's your unit's mission or vision? And they start to try to rattle off the scouting mission. That's legitimate, but I'm thinking much more granularly. What is your unit's reason for existing? Why did your unit come together, and the people that put all the energy into making that unit go and healthy, why? Why are you doing it? So we have to think about how we're going to motivate the people in our unit. And certainly there is a part of that solution is there's something about scouting that they're drawn to, but there's all this potential for your unit to develop personality and purpose that is distinct to your unit. That, in fact, may be the thing that differentiates your unit from the one across town, and the reason why somebody chooses, to join Unit A as opposed to Unit B. It could be that one unit's doing a much better job of articulating to prospective families, this is what we do, this is who we are, and this is what your kid gets to be a part of if you choose to join us. All right, so acing your values. This one is a fun one to do as a troop activity or in a pack. The adults can do this in a parent meeting. But the idea is to try to figure out what is important to this unit. And when I say the unit, I mean the families that make up the unit, right? That's the culture and the personality of the unit, are the kids and the families that participate in it. So what are their values? How do they want to be communicated with? What do they expect to get out of their scouting experience? So what if you look at this activity, right? You write down, it's just an open session. People start lifting off, what do you value? What's important to you? How do those values show up in how our unit runs? And actually take people through this exercise. If you find a pretty significant gap between what your families tell you they value in scouting, or they value the experience that they want their kids to have, if there's a delta between that list and what your unit is doing day to day, week to week, month to month, how you're planning summer, there's a blinking yellow light for you to pay attention to. If people aren't getting their needs met, if why they chose to join your unit isn't what the unit is delivering week after week, month after month, we can guess what's going to happen, right? They're not going to stay. You're going to lose them. Maybe it takes 2 months, maybe it takes a year, but they won't stick around if what they joined for and what's important to them isn't reflected in the unit that they brought their kids to. Scouting takes too much time to invest in something that's not providing for you what you were looking for. Makes sense, right?
Is this importance or focus driven by the adults or collaborative with Scouts and the charter?
Great question. I think it probably depends upon whether or not we're talking about a pack or a troop. Generally speaking, right? If it's a pack, that is going to be the adults probably thinking about that. The kids aren't going to be like, tell us when the next Pinewood Derby is. But if it's a troop, I sure hope that you're involving your youth in it. Mm-hmm. I sure hope that your youth are always a part of those kind of conversations at the troop level. What is important to us? What do we want? How do we want to be seen by others? What what scouting values or other values or what type of personality do we want this unit to have? And in a troop, your youth are driving that every bit as much as the adults are. So I think the adults need to be a part of that room and bought in, but I hope that is a pretty equal balance between the youth and the adults trying to figure out what that should look like.
Great.
All right, what do you think of when I say spam? This one helps us to think a little bit about how we are going to motivate our team, what we understand about the product that we're trying to sell, and what skills it's going to take to get it done. So the reality here is that, let me put it this way. How do you all probably know somebody who's anti-scouting, right? They don't get it. They think it, it's got a bad reputation. It's antiquated. Nobody does that anymore. How many of those people, though, have never tried scouting? They just have an idea that scouting isn't for them, right? It's kind of like, how many of us think we like spam? There are a lot of people that think spam is disgusting that maybe have never tried it. That's really my point. So when we are meeting people and when we are sharing scouting with them, we have to be aware that sometimes it begins with overcoming their preconceived notions about what scouting is and about whether or not someone like their family would actually be well served, would get their needs met by scouting. So we have to remember, sometimes we might look like spam, and it's our job to figure out how we introduce people to us in such a way that they might try our product. That's going to have a lot to do with how we communicate about scouting. If we understand the product that we're selling well enough to have a conversation with somebody and hear their concerns or their questions and be able to adequately answer them so they feel like, wow, I hadn't considered that, or I just got some information that actually now is going to cause me maybe to reconsider whether or not this is a good option for my family. All right, I think this one is really important. People work as hard as they are motivated by the dream, right? So if Rick has a dream that isn't my dream, Rick might be willing to work very hard for his dream. I may not be willing to work nearly as hard for Rick's dream because I don't identify with it as mine. So imagine this scenario that I bet a lot of you are in. You are all out there in units. I hope, and we're going to talk about this too, that your unit has some kind of a big dream. That might be, in 2 years, we're taking a trek to Philmont, or we're going to be a part of the council's jamboree contingent, or I don't know, we're going to make it, to Camp Baldwin next summer. It doesn't matter. The point is, what is the dream of your unit that motivates your parents to show up, your kids to participate? What is your big dream? What is it that gets everybody excited about coming out to your pack or troop meeting? It's like finishing the sentence. Wouldn't it be great if our pack or troop blank? What is that thing that gets everybody excited? So I would encourage you to think about two things. Have you sat in a pack or in a troop meeting and actually had that conversation, right? Scouting spells out advancement and all the things we do. To some extent, at times, we're not taking control of what our unit's going to do. We're just following the prescribed program that tells us this is what we do in September and this is what we do in January. After a while, it just feels like we're on the assembly line, right? Doing the same thing over and over again. That could be an indicator that your unit could really benefit from some type of a project, a goal that is going to get people pumped about coming out and being involved. Another way to look at this is, what could your unit do if we had 20 more youth? Maybe there is a dream that's hard to achieve because your unit is too small. But if your unit could grow, this dream becomes more possible. So now you have to look for, okay, we've got a dream. Now we need to communicate that dream to families because we're looking for families whose families or children are motivated by the thing that we're motivated by, right? If you are a unit that does a ton of whitewater rafting and my kid hates water, probably not going to be pumped about joining your unit, right? But if I love to hike and this unit has a culture where they do a ton of hiking, that could be a perfect fit. And then the unit says, you know what, we're going to take off next summer and do a 100-miler on the PCT. Well, that's a big dream. So I really encourage you to actually invest some time as a unit talking about what is your big dream. And then recognize one really important thing. As people leave the unit and new people come into the unit, that dream is going to have to flex and change. You know, you bring in 5 new families, it's time to have the conversation again about what is our big dream. So there's got to be enough space that those dreams recycle. You achieve one, you start over. As the unit makeup changes, you're constantly having that conversation. So what's this note about post-charter blues? Sometimes the big dream is just to start the troop or the pack. But what happens once you get it started? Well, we've achieved our big dream. Now what? Right? People lose the sense of purpose because the purpose was to get the unit off the ground. So you would be surprised, or maybe not, because a lot of you are around membership, but we have a lot of units that start and within 18 months, they're gone. I would suggest that one of the reasons is their goal was to start, but they didn't have enough clarity about what they wanted to achieve once they got started. So it is a continual process to recycle and ask yourself, or not even recycle, refresh is a better word, to refresh and say, okay, what do we want to do now? What do we want to do next? Who are the people that we need to make that happen? And are we looking for people to bring into our unit that share that goal? And are we willing to let that goal evolve as the makeup of our unit changes? Okay. What can you do about unit apathy? Anybody relate to any of these statements? God, I'm the only one in my unit who cares about this. You know, I can't get anybody to help me. You know, this membership thing I agreed to do stinks because it's really hard. And I feel like I'm responsible for this for my whole unit and it's not working. That's a hard way to feel. It's not, we just got done talking about motivations and dreams, right? These feelings are demotivating. These feelings are not motivating. So the tale of mules and horses. Let's talk about that one a little bit. How many of you have ever tried to push a mule? Anybody? How'd that work? Not very well, right? What's likely to happen if you start trying to push a mule?
Get kicked.
You're going to get kicked. Exactly. So too often in scouting, and man, I have been on the receiving end of this, you come into a room like this, you're pumped, you've got an idea, you can't wait for your chance, right? You throw your idea out on the table. Invariably, some guy in a red jacket throws his hand up and says, you know, we tried that 27 years ago when I was a scoutmaster and it doesn't work. You know, that's the way we've always done it in our unit is, right? Ever heard that before? The point is, those are the mules. There's always going to be somebody ready to tell us why our idea won't work, why they've already tried that, why that is not, they don't think that your approach, you know, you're excited about your innovative idea that you want to try, and you feel like nobody cares because you can't get anybody to buy in. I think we waste a lot of time in scouting and probably in life on trying to change the mind of the mules. I submit to you today, let's stop. It is not our job to change the mind of those that don't want to change. Our job is to find the people in our units that are the workhorses. Who are the people when I say, okay, Virginia, what do you think about, we're going to have an ice cream social, and I finished my sentence and Virginia says, yeah, you know what? We could invite this person and this person. And they are excited by the idea. They add to your idea and they're willing to help you find a path forward, to try something new. Spend your time looking for the people that want to help you grow the unit rather than spending your time trying to overcome the objections of people who are pretty comfortable the way it is and they don't want it to change. And a final note about the mules. It isn't that we're leaving the mules behind. I look at it like this. If the mules are in the field on the left, we are moving to the field on the right. The gate is wide open. You are so welcome and invited to come with us, but we're not going to stay here. We're going to go ahead and move to the next field. So I think sometimes we have to really get over that because we spin our wheels a lot in scouting, trying to convince people that are not interested in being convinced. It will wear you out and it will burn you out. You will not have fun, and then you'll be one of the people that didn't stick around. So I really encourage you to reframe your thinking on that. We can love on those people, but we don't have to stop or give up just because they can't be convinced. And, sometimes it works out. You go ahead and try that idea, and that person at one point who wasn't very motivated may very well come around. And you may get them there, but they're not going to be one of your early adopters, right? They may be one of your latecomers. Go ahead and let them be that with kindness, but with an unwillingness to stop because, the 30-year veteran, and by the way, could be the 2-year veteran. It's not just the person that's been around for a long time, but they'll dampen your efforts. All right. So this one is important. Any of you that know me could probably guess that I'm an always joiner. But there are really 3 kinds of people. The kind of people who live in FOMO, fear of missing out. So they always want to be a part of everything. They're excited by new ideas. There are also people, about 15% of us, who are never joiners. It's just not their jam. For whatever reason, they do things their own way. Communal activities like scouting, church, whatever, are probably never going to be where they put in a lot of time. But here's the good news. 60-70% of people are right square in the middle. They're the maybe joiners. That is your sweet spot. That is where you're aiming. You have a back to school night. I would submit to you, most of the people that are going to come are always joiners. You already had them. They just came so that they could meet you and get the form. Obviously, that's not 100%, right? But it's the type of activity, a back to school, a join night, that is likely to attract people that have already more or less settled on the idea that they're going to join scouting. But that's a small percentage. You've got to figure out how to get to the maybe joiners because that's where all of your growth potential is at. And those people may or may not come to your join night. So how do we begin to figure out how to bring those people into the fold? If they're not coming to us, then what does that mean?
Gotta go to them.
We got to go to them, right? If we don't go to where they are, we're not going to get the chance to help them consider whether or not scouting might be a good opportunity for their youth. So I want to talk about a Mind Joggers activity because then we're going to talk about, well, how do we go find these people, Kayleen? How do you do that? So this activity is about getting you to establish what we're going to call a friends list. So we're gonna sit down in a unit. So I would say in a pack. This is going to be done by the adults. In a troop, absolutely. You get your kids to do this, and it's this simple. You're on a whiteboard or somebody's on the laptop or their iPad, and we're going to start listing all the people we know. Who are the families on your block? Who are the people that go to your church? Who's in your book club? Who goes to your gym? I have a ton of them written down here. What members of your family have kids that aren't scouting right now? Who's in your yoga class? Who do you go on walks with? Who are all the contacts in your cell phone? The point I'm trying to make is you know a lot of people. You're you have not yet connected all those people you know with people who might possibly become members of your units. So in the Mind Joggers activity, you are not filtering. You are just populating the biggest list you can with possible people that you all know. That takes away this idea of I don't know how to recruit anybody. I don't know anybody. Not true. You actually know a lot of people. What we've got to help you do is figure out that you have a bigger network than you may realize, and that all of those people, or many of them, right, are potentially members of your unit. So once you have this big, massive list, and this is where I would put the youth to work in a troop. So now go back to those normal friend activities that we talked about, right? Once a month, say, or you pick your cadence, your unit is going to have a normal friend activity, a mini golf day, a barbecue. I mean, the list is endless. We're all going to go to Starbucks. It doesn't matter. What matters is it's an approachable activity that most people in a community have done. You're going to pull out this list of all of your friends, and everybody's going to commit to inviting somebody. The goal is not to pitch scouting. The goal is to get to know people.
Yeah, I would say, I had a fun conversation, it's been a year or two now, but went to a troop's annual planning and asked the youth as they were starting to think about things on Friday night, what's the youth's role in recruiting in the unit? And they all kind of looked around. I'm like, well, you guys, there's a rank requirement, right? You have to invite a friend. How did that go? What did you invite him to? Well, I invited him to a meeting. And I'm like, and how many of them joined? And it's like, not too many. And so it was like, what would you want them to come to? And then they had all these ideas, and it was fun to see over the course of Friday night and Saturday as they said, oh, and we could invite friends to that and
Right.
stuff. And so, the scouts, once you plant that seed, it's kind of fun watching them have fun with what would they want to invite a friend to.
Back in the day, that's all you had to do was invite a friend to a meeting. That's not holding water anymore. They want to come do something fun.
So now I'm hearing, we're doing an outing a month and another activity a month, right? It's kind of what I'm hearing.
Well, I've seen it go a couple of ways. I've seen a unit turn 1 week a month's troop meeting into their NFA. So it's not an additional, but it is we're gonna trade out, tonight, rather than meeting at our regular location, we're all doing X and bring a friend. So I think you can approach it a number of ways. It doesn't have to be one more thing, but it might be a reprioritization so that you're looking at how we can incorporate something that pulls our unit together, but gives us the opportunity to invite people that are not yet scouts in an approachable format, where they're more likely to have the opportunity to interact with us rather than watching us hold a meeting.
Yeah, because in this example, they were just incorporating friends into the program that they were already planning for the year rather than try to add one more thing, like you said.
Because I recognize, y'all don't need another meeting. I totally understand that.
I'm gonna be honest, I don't know yet what that looks like. So we have 3 meetings a month at a PLC.
Mhm.
If we then have 2 meetings a month and 2 activities a month, I don't know that I don't in my mind see developing the skills and the planning in those 2 remaining meetings. It's different for them what I've done, right?
Well, and I think it is, it's gonna look different for every unit, how they decide to work that, right? And I don't offer it as a inflexible prescription. I offer it as maybe your cadence for normal friend activities is every other month, maybe, I think you get to decide that.
Right.
But what I would offer is just that if we meet people in places that they're already familiar with, and incorporate that and into your unit's culture, you're gonna have a better opportunity to get new people to come out and check you out than if the expectation is that they need to come to a scouting event where you're pretty focused. PLC is a great example, right? There's things to do that night. There's not a lot of time to be focused on sitting down and chatting, with the new person that came. So I think the invitation would be to think about how you can incorporate some of that into your calendar. And the cadence, you've got to decide what your unit can sustain.
And it could be things that you're already doing, merit badges, it could be Dutch oven cooking, just an extra component that a friend might want to come and see what that is and eat cherry cobbler.
A couple of comments from the chat. Our Cub Scout pack only meets as a pack once a month. This would definitely add a novel meeting to our group. Yeah, I think you should run with it, Kyle. Try something new. Allison says you could combine things, a meeting with a fire building or lashing competition, teams of friends and scouts, or even a sporting competition. Yeah.
You know, in PACs, I've seen it work well, particularly in the summer when often PACs are not as active. We're gonna go, you know, meet in the park, parents are gonna barbecue, kids are gonna play soccer, and everybody's gonna invite somebody to come, right? So I think, again, I think you've got to figure out what's gonna work in your unit. The real takeaway is find ways to gather as a unit doing activities that people out there in the community are already familiar with, and it opens the door to introduce scouting. So this friends list, and then we'll move on to the next slide.
One more comment,
sorry,
couple more
please.
comments. Kyle says, we meet as Dens too, so not only once a month. All right, they do summer activities like this. Corey says, here's an example idea. Just encourage the youth in a patrol to get together for a movie night or something and invite some friends. Mention something cool about scouting.
Yeah, you guys you get it. So the last thing on the friends list, if you do it once and you park it, right? It's a little bit like writing a strategic plan at work. If you write the plan and then you put it on the shelf and consider it done, it's not terribly useful. So that friends list really needs to be a living document. So again, choose your cadence. Maybe it's, you know, every other month we return to this mind joggers activity and we add people to the list. And somebody's keeping track, right? Oh, we invited Zach and he came, but then we invited, George and they didn't. And so you really, it's only as good as your commitment to working the list. But if you keep that activity going, then you've always got somebody to invite. And it makes it easy. It makes it, frankly, easier to get it done and harder for people to have the excuse of, I don't know who to invite, because you've already got everybody who's had to surface some names. And so now I can just remind Dolly, well, you put, Sally Jones on the list last month. How would you feel about inviting her this time? Or do you think this activity that we're doing this month would be of interest, right, to this person? So the whole idea is to try to make it a little bit easier for people to help recruit, so that it doesn't feel so hard and it's more likely that they'll actually do it.
And if Sally only comes when we're having an activity and she doesn't join, then you have a different set of things to think about.
Yeah, and now that's a perfect segue into where we're going. So when I say, how do you sell scouting? And I say, are you selling features or benefits? What do you think that means? What do I mean when I say, are you selling features or benefits? I've stumped you all. So I think that the reality is, if we are talking to youth, it might be more advantageous to sell the features. You're going to get to go to camp. There's this place called Philmont. We go climbing. You're going to make all these new friends. You're going to get to learn how to tie knots. If you're selling to parents, then you might want to talk about benefits. I love to have this conversation. Rick, tell me about your son or daughter. What do you hope that your child's like when they're 25? Like, what is your hope for your child when they graduate college, right? I try to pull this parent out. Like, what are you the most concerned about? What do you hope that they'll be like? What do you hope that their character will be? And then, all of these are clues you're giving me, right? So I'm listening intently while you're telling me that. And then I'm thinking about how might I show you that scouting could be a pathway to help your child turn into that person that you want them to be when they're an adult. Mm-hmm. So with parents, parents can get excited about features too. Which of us doesn't like to go on adventures and have fun, right? But there is something really important about selling the benefits. People spend their money for two reasons: to fulfill a need or to feel good, right? So if scouting is fulfilling a need that they have for their child, parents will spend time and money on that. If we are giving them a way to feel good about themselves, about their family, parents will spend money on that. So we have to think about, we have to become salespeople. And we have to think about, how do we position our product so that it's more likely that somebody wants to buy it? And are we spending the time to bring the product to them and help them understand it, to try to increase the likelihood that they might give us a try. So what did you see in the chat?
Yeah, the
Good.
chat came through. They said features are what you do, benefits are how it transforms you. Features are the cool things, benefits are the long-term value. Parents see the leadership and the communication skills, and the kids see fun and activities.
Yeah, well said.
Another person mentioned when we were reaching out to new families that you can invite a friend to a camp out or activity. That is okay, as long as the parent signs a permission slip and provides the AB part of the medical form. So if you're prospecting with new families, you can invite them to your events and activities.
Yeah, thank you for putting that in the chat, because that's an important one. There's a misperception out there sometimes that you can't bring people to an activity that your unit's doing if they're not a member of Scouting already. We only have to deal with the NCAP rules for overnight, but if you're bringing them to a daytime activity, you absolutely can, the troop is going swimming, they can bring a friend. Really, it becomes an incredibly important recruitment tool, particularly for our adolescents, because, when you're 13, 14, 15, you'd much rather be with your friends. So helping make it easy for them to invite their friends to do something that they're already doing is a very, very smart way to help grow your unit. So let's talk about, okay, next slide. I like this one a lot, because this is where we get into, now I'm talking to that maybe joiner, right? I'm talking to that person who is maybe interested, but has some reservations, and they're not quite sure whether or not this is for them. And here's the point about that maybe joiner. If you can overcome their objections, if you can solve for the reason that they're hesitant, you exponentially increase the likelihood that they're going to give you a try. But if nobody ever makes the effort to address the thing that's giving them pause, they may well talk themselves out of ever giving it a shot. So that's really what your job is. And this is what often happens, right? All of those excuses that we've all used, and they're valid, but they're still excuses. So, it's expensive. I already have 7 things going on. My kid is already in sports and band, and, I am not an outdoors person. I hate being in a tent. There is 100 reasons to not join if what you want is to not join. So our goal is to figure out how to overcome those. So I love to use feel, felt, and found. You know what? I feel the same way. When we first joined, I was so overwhelmed. I had no idea how we were going to get this done. I felt really worried about, is it going to be worth the money that we're going to invest? Is it going to be one more weekend that I don't see my partner? But you know what I found? What I found is our whole family can scout together. We're all involved. We actually are spending more quality time together as a family because of scouting than we were spending before. So you need to relate to them, right? Talk to them from your own experience. Don't tell them that their excuse isn't valid, because nobody wants to hear that, right? Nobody wants to hear, oh, Rick, it doesn't cost that much. You know what? I hear you. I get it. It can feel expensive, but gosh, I have found the financial investment that we've made was returned to us tenfold in the quality of the experience and watching my kids grow. That's the strategy, right? Is to actually make it personal, relate to the objection that you're hearing, and if possible, provide the person you're talking to an example of how that objection has been overcome, either in your personal experience or maybe in the experience of somebody else in your unit that you're familiar with. The point is to let them see, A, we hear you, and B, there might be a solution or an outcome that you haven't thought of that would change your thinking about that particular reason that you're just not sure. Anything in the chat we need to?
Price is only an objection in the absence of value.
Yeah, there you go.
Observation
right?
there.
Right. I think before we go on to the next slide, I really want you to look at that, the do not line. Do not lie. Do not make crap up. I mean, really, don't fail to hear them. Don't dismiss their objections as if they're irrelevant or not important. What's gonna happen, right? All that's gonna happen is you're gonna turn somebody off and you're not gonna get a chance to have a second conversation. So sometimes those conversations can be, maybe a little bit challenging, but it's worth the investment. And there are, 70% of people fall in that maybe joiner category. So if we don't go to them and if we don't have these conversations, the likelihood that we get them to join our units is gonna diminish. It's that simple. Okay. So develop your people skills. We get to talk about the F-bombs now. And not that F-bomb, right? But family, fun, friends, favorites. Dolly, what do you do for fun? Zach, tell me about your friends. Where are you from, right? So when we get these new families to come to this great normal friend activity that we're having, it's really important that we take the time to actually get to know them. What is everybody's favorite topic?
Themselves.
Bingo! Bingo! People like to talk about themselves. So when you have that activity and you bring people out, if you're doing all the talking, you're doing it wrong. The point I'm making is you need to give them the chance to take center stage. Ask them questions, figure out what they're about. And these are easy questions to ask because they're not trick questions. Everybody can answer these. But you feel seen and you feel included when somebody sits down and talks with you. So that family comes in to the troop meeting or the PAC meeting, right? Don't overwhelm them with, here's where to buy your uniform, or ignore them. But take 10 minutes, pull up a chair, sit down, and ask them where they're from. Ask them what they do for fun. Ask them to tell you about their kids, and engage them in conversation. They're going to feel welcomed, which is really important, and you're going to learn something about them that I guarantee you will be valuable as you move forward in your hope to get them to decide to join your unit. So I don't think you can lose. So it's important to talk about +1, bridging, and the next meeting. So what is +1? If we all put our business hats on for a minute, if you're going in a business setting and you're pitching a donor or you're pitching a client or you're selling something, it is a very common strategy that you bring 2 people to the meeting with 1 person, right? So you don't have to do this alone. It can be really valuable to bring another person with you. So that's a strategy to think about. That way you can go back and forth and you can each help to carry the conversation. You're meeting that new person, and there's a couple of different perspectives you can share. Bridging is perhaps my favorite. So I meet somebody that comes to the activity and I find out that they absolutely love rock climbing. Well, it just turns out that Virginia in our unit also loves rock climbing. So I'm very intentional. You know what, Rick, I really want you to meet Virginia. And I bring you over and I introduce you to Virginia and I tell you both that you each have an interest in rock climbing. So that makes it easy for the 2 of you to begin having a conversation. And you know what just happened? The next time we have an NFA, when we invite Rick again, now Rick doesn't just know Kayleen, he knows Kayleen and Virginia. So the next time he comes, it's that much easier to start a conversation because you've met more people. One of the things that I think that we have to accept is you invite me to one of these activities. Inviting me once doesn't mean that you've landed me, right? You may well need to invite me to activities 2 or 3 times before I'm ready to think about making a commitment to scouting. I am going to absolutely liken this to dating, right? How many of you propose to your partners on the first date? You hear those stories every once in a while, but not very often, right? So be more interested in getting to know these people than you are in trying to get them to join your unit. The ask to join your unit might come 3 months, 6 months. after you met them. But if you invest the time in making a connection and beginning to build some type of common ground, by the time you ask them to join the unit, they've probably already made up their mind to say yes. I do a lot of fundraising for a living, and one of my truths is by the time I ask you to donate, you already know it's coming. And I've already gotten you to the point where you're ready to say yes. And I shouldn't be making the ask until I've helped you get to that point. So that's really what you're doing here. You're getting to know people and getting them ready to say yes, such that, they're wondering why you haven't asked them yet by the time that you do it. And then next meeting, that's as simple as you come out to this normal friend activity and you're new. I don't let you leave without telling you the next time that we're all getting together. I just want to invite you to the next thing before I let you get out the door. Okay? So,
I
please.
got a question here. Can you circle back to getting help from within your own unit? I am at work and missed the slide about, maybe how to motivate leaders in the pack.
So how to get other people in the pack to help.
They joined.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm happy to do that. So the short version is you're looking for the people who are excited about trying something new, excited about investing in the new activity that we're going to put together to bring people into the unit. So that slide was a lot about sometimes we end up getting blocked by people in our packs or our troops who feel like your idea won't work. People who, I call them the mules in my example. So people who have more feedback about why this isn't a good idea than they have willingness to try. So you're really looking for the people that hear your idea and add to it their own. And the encouragement is to not get distracted by the people that don't want to try new things, and instead put your energy into finding the people that want to help you. And if that's 2 of you, that's better than 1. But don't spend any time trying to overcome objections because it will just burn you out.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
You bet. So these tactics are only as good as your commitment to doing them over and over again. Right? If I brush my teeth once, my teeth are clean for 1 day, right? You got to brush your teeth every day. And that's really the point. Like these strategies are effective, but they're effective applied consistently over time. That's why eventitis and dependiditis don't work. If spring recruitment season got it done, we wouldn't need this conversation. Right? If Join Nights had 500 families show up, we wouldn't need this conversation. But the reality is that's not how it works anymore. And so that's why I think that the value in these tactics is in figuring out what your unit is willing to try consistently over time and incorporating it into how you scout instead of facing it like a burden that you have to do on top of everything else. You've got to find a way to make it easier because none of you have time to work any harder. It's got to be about how we're going to work a little bit smarter. So, again, you're going to continue to add names to that list. You're going to continue thinking about what the next normal friend activity is. You're going to continue asking your unit what their big dream is. You're going to continue looking for the people that are interested in trying new things or planning the next activity. But it will work as well as you commit to continuing to do it.
One of the keys there is that if on the first or second try, people want to join, invite them in. Don't tell them they have to wait 3 months till fall to sign up and join your unit.
Yeah.
You can enjoy our free activities, but you can't really join till September.
Yeah. That's one we've got to break down, you guys. I understand the reasons why, it's harder to bring a kid in mid-year, but my goodness, right? How many of you have bought a new car? If you're ready to buy the car and the salesman tells you, well, I can't sell it to you until July, you're not coming back, right? We've got to be willing to meet people where they are and bring them into our units on their timetable, not on ours. And if that is creating in your unit a big challenge in terms of making it work, then you should be calling this building. You should be calling Virginia and Tim and saying, I need some help because I know better than to let this person go and here's why it's a struggle, but I'd pop that problem up the food chain and say, help me figure that out. Rather than letting that person go because you're not quite sure how to accommodate them mid-year. So, I mean, this is just recap, right? What could your unit do if it doubled in size? What becomes possible that feels impossible right now? How much money could that unit raise? What opportunity for your kids could be delivered? What's your big dream, right? And then you've got to get people fired up about the unit growing. And those normal friend activities are fun, right? You get to choose your activities. So if it's not something that your unit is excited to do, then you didn't pick the right activity. So, talk to the kids, talk to the parents. What are they excited about? I would ask them, well, when you're not scouting, what do you do with your friends? Well, is there a way to make a connection between making it a scouting event and one of those activities? If you don't tell your friends about scouting, why? Again, ask your kids, what do your friends think of scouting? If they don't like it, why? There is a wealth of information in the minds of your scouts, but you've got to, and it's their peers we're recruiting, right? So have your scouts give you some insight. I always think it's kind of silly when those of us with graying hair are trying to figure it out, when the people that we're trying to recruit are, a quarter or half of our age, right? Less than half. So we really need to use our youth as a resource. And as not just an information resource, but as a recruitment resource, right? So I think that's a big one. And then continue, right? It's implementation and feedback over and over again.
Somebody in the chat says, our troop is so small that our last 3 NFAs have had only one friend attendee in total. Only 3 of our families are middle school aged. How do we bootstrap these activities without a robust base of scouts with a broad friend network?
Yeah, that's a really valid question. It is harder when you're small, when you're really small, right? I think you perhaps, particularly if you're focused on growth, you may need to really do some thinking about what compromises you can make, right? If there are important scouting goals that can't be achieved very well with a unit that's got 5 kids in it, you may need to say, we're going to spend the next 6 months really primarily focusing on growth, right? We're gonna double down on, normal friend activities and give up a camping trip one weekend so that we can, or 1 month, right? So that we can instead replace it with, an activity where we can invite people. I think you need to give yourself permission to look at what you can do and look at how you can, focus first on getting a few more kids coming out to activities so that you then have the opportunity to say how can that change what we can do as a unit.
I have a couple of ideas too, or suggestions. I would, first check, have you built a relationship with a nearby pack? Building that bridge to a pack is excellent because then you can build those relationships, strengthen your presence in that unit by providing a den chief so that those kids will know who you are and what troop that they want to go to, right? So I would start there with a nearby pack. And then just the basics. Has your troop done a recruitment or promotion attempt? I'm not sure what district you're in, but we can do Facebook ads for your zip code, for your neighborhood, that target, that family that we want to join. So have you had that self-promotion? Are you on the Facebook pages? Are you on the PTA groups? Have we made those attempts that we encourage everybody to do, during the spring and year round? Just that self-promotion is important. And then keep trying, David. Don't give up. Just because that happened one time, just like Kayleen is saying, you have to make that a regular attempt. That's what dynamic recruitment is all about. It's not just trying once and, nobody came, so we're not doing that again. We have to keep trying, right? Somebody else said smaller units can piggyback on district opportunities. So yeah, that's great. Asking those youth to bring friends to those bigger activities. If you're not using our marketing and recruitment tools, we do have business cards that you could order something smaller that they can give out, to their friends at school. That's another great promotion. So it's not like, a traditional flyer size, but just something small that you as well and as your parents could give out as well. If you're in a grocery store handing out, you do that friend networking thing, not just with the kids, but with the adults in that unit as well. So just some things if you haven't tried that.
And give up the idea that units are all in competition with each other. Maybe there's another small unit and you're going to partner together and do an activity, right? It's not about do they join my unit or yours. It's about can we bring more people into scouting. So you don't have to go it alone. You can partner with other units. You can also borrow, right? Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. If something is working for another unit and you think it might work for yours, for goodness sakes, borrow away. And I hope if your unit is the one that's thriving, you're talking to other Scoutmasters and you're letting them know, hey, we had a lot of success with X. You might give that a try. So next slide is just a few FAQs that come up a lot. What about social media? I hear that a lot. Social media is important. We all spend a lot of time on these things, right? Social media is not an answer by itself, but should you have a social media presence for your unit? Yes. There's all kinds of ways to do that. It might be a website, it might be an Insta page, it might be a Facebook page, but show people out there your unit having fun. Right? That's the cool part about scouting. We do a lot of things that are very photogenic. So take pictures and get them out. Let other people see the fun that your unit is having. That's how I would use social media. And make sure that it is full of the information that somebody would need to find you or connect with you, right smack, easily found on your social media channel so that it's simple. Just don't lose sight of the fact that often the most effective way for any of us to recruit another human being is in person, right? So you need those tools to support your effort. But if you are hoping that a really kick-ass web page is going to get it done for you, probably not. It's an important tool, but it alone is unlikely to grow your unit. That's going to take a little sweat equity in addition, to those tools that support your effort. Hey, my professional wants us to do Scouts Night at our school. Should we do that? I heard that those are antiquated. Yes, you should do that because there's no magic bullet here. There's not one thing that's going to grow your unit. There's all the things. So you can't do everything, right? But the point is if you only have one strategy, then you only have one shot to be successful. So like a lot of things, you need to put together the mix of strategies that are going to work for your unit. And that is probably going to mean incorporating some traditional static recruitment strategies and also layering in some dynamic recruitment strategies. Clearly, the more robust your approach, the more likely then you're going to get to meet new people and bring them in. So this one I've heard a lot too. Well, as a commissioner, what can I do to help make this happen? What's my role in membership? Where should I show up in this conversation? You are the single best resource for that unit, right? So, that's the blessing and the curse of being a commissioner is you got to know it all. You have to have your hand in all the pots. What's happening in membership? How do you fundraise for your unit? How do I get signed up for summer camp? But if you can have these, if you're serving in a commissioning role or if you are on a district team and you're trying to think about how to support the units in your district, having all of these strategies, in your toolbox and being able to share them with units so that they can self-serve. I think of it like a menu. You go in the restaurant, you open the menu, it's full of things. So here's the menu full of all of the different opportunities that we can give you and the tools that we can use to support you. And now you've got to figure out what you're going to have for an entree and what you're going to have for a dessert, right? So I think that is incredibly important. And the knowledge that a commissioner brings is really powerful to a unit. It always breaks my heart when a unit tells me they have no idea who their commissioner is, because that person should be their best friend. So something's breaking down. If a unit cannot identify who their commissioner is, And if we have not taught those units to use those commissioners as a resource.
Somebody in the chat says, it goes back to a little bit about what we were talking about earlier with burnout. I know I have what it takes to plan activities and connect with people, but I do find this type of work a bit exhausting. I enjoy it, but I need to decompress afterwards. How do you make this practice sustainable when it becomes a regular occurrence? And I responded, I just said, you should lean into your district executive. They're here to help you get the word out and can support you. But is there anything else you'd add to that?
I think that's a great it's a great starting point. I think you have to, spread the love, if you will, by which I simply mean if it's me planning it every single time, it's gonna get old, right? It's gonna feel again like I'm the only one who cares about growing this unit. So if I planned this month's, bowling outing, who's the volunteer? Well, what do you enjoy doing, right? Like, what could you plan next month? So I think you need to reiterate in your unit how important it is that those normal friend activities are happening, and ask people to help host something that they would be interested in putting on, right? It stinks to plan a thing that you don't really have very much interest in. So can you split up that responsibility by letting people gravitate to what they like? An activity that I love to do, this comes up a lot, like when you're doing your troops annual planning meeting and you're putting together your calendar. You think about all the things that your unit needs to do. And you could do this in the membership realm too. It all goes on sticky notes, and all those sticky notes go up on the wall. And then we say to people, okay, all the things that we need to do are up on the wall, and we need everybody to do something. So you send everybody to the wall, pull down the sticky note of the thing that you're willing to sign up for, the thing that you're willing to own. Inevitably, people will go do that. They'll come sit down. There's still 6 sticky notes that are up on the wall that nobody took. Now you get to have a really important conversation. These 6 things didn't get chosen, and 1 or 2 things now has to happen. We either need to agree, as everybody's sitting around the table in that meeting, that thing isn't important, and so we're going to let it go because nobody wants to do it. Or we're going to have to reaffirm the fact that we all actually do believe this thing is important, and somebody is going to have to step up and help. So that might be a way to go about it, right? We need 12 months of normal friend activities. I'm putting 12 stickies up on the wall. I need 12 takers, or we've got to reevaluate how we want to approach this growth thing.
Mm-hmm. Some other suggestions from other scouters in the chat, they say, look to see if past scouts that are now in their mid to late 20s are around and invite them to help your unit.
That's a great
idea. They are
idea.
the future. They know what scouting can do for a youth. They may have a young family or starting one soon. Engage them. Eagle Scouts are a great place to look. And if you are in that position where you want to know, I would ask either, previous unit leaders that are still around. They might have those connections still. But we are building an alumni committee at the council. So I can include that information when I send out this list. So in case you wanted to see if there were people still around that you might know. Somebody else said, I'm shadowing the current new member coordinator over the next year before I take this on next spring. They're working to acquaint themselves now with that person early to get the hang of recruitment and what it takes. So that's great. Thank you.
Yeah. That idea about reaching out to kids that have just aged out of the unit or the kids that are back from college, I'm literally writing that on my note page because that is a fantastic idea, right? Hey, ask those young adults to plan it, or just say, hey, so-and-so that used to be in our unit's going to be home, we're putting it together. I mean, any hook works if it is compelling to the room. But I think that's a great way to get some of our young adults. One of my scouting pet peeves is that we spend 10 years teaching these scouts how to be leaders. We put them in all these positions. We make them do hard things. We make them build team. And then they turn 18 and they want an adult role in scouting, and we tell them that they're not qualified. So, we need to do a better job of engaging our 18 to 30-year-olds before they have kids, not just when they have kids, right? And there's a lot of ways to do that. But those could be workhorses who are ready, rather than mules, right? Who are ready to really help you grow. Exactly. We got one sitting right here in the room. So,
Okay, next question.
of course.
So at your beginning of the slide, we're talking about your 15% of like always joiners. I feel that if we could get those 15% of always joiners to join our pack would be enormous.
You're right.
Speaking as somebody who just joined our pack like 6 months ago,
Okay.
9 months ago, I didn't even know that like there was a Cub Scout group around in our neighborhood. We feel so invisible. It's one of the reasons I'm here tonight. Is that like, do you have any suggestions on like how we make like people just know that like scouting exists? Like there's a million signs for join this sports team, join this karate club, but none for like join our scouting
Right.
organization.
You're right. You're absolutely right. And I think and I'm curious for what others think, but I think you've got to find places that you can be visible, right? So we're heading into the summer season where it's easier because we all move outside. But when the pack goes to the park, make a lawn sign and set it up, right? Have something visible that says, hey, we're scouts, right? Maybe you're in uniform, but maybe you're not. So I think that's one thing, is to be approachable, to name yourself with some kind of a sign so that people actually know that this is a group of scouts. And to get out there. I think sometimes we're invisible because we meet in a church basement and then we go to our own properties that the general public are not out to scout, and we do sort of fade into the background. So I think we have to sort of re-engage with how do we show up more in the community. I suspect that those that were scouting in the 50s and 60s, it did look, the hardware store and all these local, stores might have a sign in the window, proud supporter, of Troop 728. Well, now it's Costco and Target, and they don't put signs in their windows, right? So I think we have to retool how we can make a visual presence in our communities.
How friendly are the local schools for like letting us do stuff with them?
Yeah, so in your area, you're in Pacific Trail, it really depends on the school district. And so some people are in the chat were saying we're having difficulty getting through the school district. But what our national office is saying, people are saying, just try, go to the local elementary school, see what that principal says. They all have family resource coordinators, they all have communications officers, they all have a newsletter, just see what's possible. But I do want to connect you to your executive so that they can help you do that. And I love that you're new. Have you ordered flyers this year?
I just got the email for that like 2 weeks ago.
Great.
And so it's on my to-do
Because
list.
you don't have to
Do you
make,
have flyers? Do you have yard signs? Do you have
Yeah.
frisbees?
I want all of those things.
you don't have to make it. We make it for you. It's totally free.
Let's talk
We'll get
afterwards
you
and
a
then
banner. I'm gonna, yeah.
And these links are gonna be your new best friends.
Yes, yes.
So,
Before you leave, I'll get you the QR code so you can place your order. Yep.
yeah,
We are blessed in this council to have the ability to provide you with resources.
yes.
If you have a set of flyers made that wherever you go, you could set that out or have a banner made or stick those yard signs in where you're playing games at the park.
I have one, I can at least ask the principal, can I hang this on
Yes.
this bulletin
And you know
board?
another word on the school thing, and the expert is sitting next to me, but sometimes we get hung up on, well, our district is not welcoming to scouting. Well, you know what? Your district doesn't host scouting. The school building does. So forget the district. Go to the literal school, right? That's where the relationships are. That's where your children go to school or somebody else's children. That's where you can get the in. And I often remind people, oh, well, that school said no to us. When? Like in 2022. What's the chance it's even the same principal now, right? No last year does not mean no this year. So it's kind of, we're back to that rinse and repeat mantra, right? You have to keep trying. And
Who has that relationship
Right.
with somebody at this?
I'll give you one of my favorite recent examples that I never would have thought of, but it turned out so cool. I was at a Woodbatch course and I was talking to a woman who they have a vibrant pack now. They got like 60 kids in this pack, which is huge, right? They wanted the kids to practice learning how to raise and lower the flag. And so they needed a flagpole. So their whole goal was we want to teach these kids how to raise and lower the flag. So they went to the school and they just asked the principal, would you mind if whatever day we came to the school for an hour and practiced raising the flag? Didn't ask them to do anything else, just to use their flagpole. What do you think happened, right? Over time, they keep showing up. They begin to get to know people. Before long, the pack had a home at this school and it really grew. But it all came out of not an ask for the school to embrace the pack, but just the opportunity to borrow their flagpole. They got an easy yes, and from there, they've more than doubled the size of their pack. So somewhere in there is like just getting creative, right? How might you connect with the school in a way that puts them scouting adjacent, but doesn't put them on the, you've got to make a decision right now, thumbs up or thumbs down to supporting our unit.
There's some great things that PACs have done, and just right now, we're in the middle of spring recruitment. There's so many units, especially River's Edge, that to increase their visibility, they're going to the farmers markets in uniform, they're going to the parades, they're going to community events, ball games, whatever, as a unit in their uniforms to increase that visibility. Another thing I'll mention is the Adopt a School program. So your unit can take that on and offer to clean up the grounds or just do upkeep around there. And that's another great way to build a relationship with the admin there.
So the two of the links up on the screen are to these dynamic recruiting playbooks, one for Cub Scouts, one for Scouts VSA. The very last link on the slide is where you can get yours right here from the council, but all the flyers, postcards, that's all on that last link. Scouting has a tremendously accessible brand center. So every logo, every PowerPoint template that you could possibly want is all available for download. So I know it can be a pain to find things on Scouting's website, not going to deny that, but there is a tremendous amount of content. And these links are a good kicking off place to a lot of resources and material. You don't have to recreate the wheel. We just have to help you all know where to go to find the tools that you need.
At that Scouting Wire address, you can find the brand center, you can find anything that you want to do in scouting, basically, to join right there.
Yeah, there's some redundancy in these links, but all of them have got a lot to share.
Good stuff. It's easy to find if you know where to look.
Yeah.
And our CPC website is like one of the great treasures. We're among the best that we've been able to find in our area. And so please, if you haven't been to CPC BSA, go CPC Scouting, I guess it is now, /recruitment, /camping, / everything.
So Rick, that's what I have for you tonight, but I'm happy to, engage in conversation, answer questions, but I'll kick it back over to Rick to take it from here.
Well, appreciate all what you put together and helpful information, but it is just the start. We're having this event tonight. We're hoping to continue to do other events that are just, units can come and participate and learn from each other, learn from guest speakers. Next month, we'll be doing a session just talking about how to manage the leads that come in from my scouting, how to take those folks and integrate and onboard them into your units. Again, I'll be having in person and online, but also always looking for other ideas of things where units are feeling stuck and things that we can do training around. So whether you're here or in the chat, feel free to drop ideas in there. We're also planning to have a good amount of training at University of Scouting again this year, and hopefully even getting into the youth program area and talking about youth recruiting among their friends as well, and trying to help inspire our youth leaders and stuff as well. So, but still, if people have questions, feel free to keep jumping in. But did want to get those plugs in and stuff too.
Okay. Really appreciate you all taking some time tonight. It's 1 hour a week per kid. So
take the night off, you're done.
That's right.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. I put my email in the chat and I've given my business card to people here in person. If you have any questions or if you need further help, please feel free to contact me. I'll put you in touch with someone that can help. And we will be sending out this video and support materials by the end of the week. Thank you so much. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye-bye. Any questions in the room? Everybody's jumping up and running, they must